May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Seated. Blessed are the poor in spirit, the mourners, the undefended, the hollow and the hungry, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So earlier this week, I was walking up to the entrance to Indigo over there on Yonge and Eglinton, and those words were rolling around in my head. I happened to have some money left on this gift card that I was given at Christmas, and I also happened to be having a terrible day. So why not break the funk with a book purchase? This is the way that a glum nerd thinks about life, right? So I entered the door, but probably because of the way that I was feeling, my eyes caught on these enormous window-sized posters flanking the entrance to the stairs. One held the image of a woman, her back to the camera, seated with perfect posture. And the poster opposite was filled with letters in all caps, "Your best self," with a chippy little tagline underneath, "Live well, do well, be well." I am happy to say that I managed to enter and climb the stairs without turning around and grabbing the posters and tearing them in half and stomping all over them, which is as sure a sign that God's at work in my life as anything, I think. Because I was annoyed, as I often am, at obnoxious advertising. This day in particular, I was annoyed of this picture of the serene good life that I just needed to seize for myself when I was the furthest thing I could imagine from my best self. But the frustration actually went deeper than that for me. Because I would like for that poster gospel to be true. Believe me, if I could become my best, strongest, most self-sufficient self, if I could be enough by buying something there, I'd do it. But I know that promise is empty. And if I could shore myself up and make myself fit to be the one on the poster out of my own resources, I would. But ask me about my resolutions 4 weeks into the new year, and I will have to out myself as a black-sliding apostate in the cult of self-improvement that we run on. And as that knot was getting tighter and tangling in me, just subtly, his words returned, as if spoken over my shoulder. I felt like good news that made the moment strange and that flipped things on their head. Blessed are the poor in spirit, the mourners, the undefended, the hollow and the hungry. Later in the day, I was walking past a bookshelf in my home, and I pulled down a book I hadn't read in a while and opened it to the very first lines. Midway upon the journey of our life, I found myself within a forest dark, for the straightforward pathway had been lost. They're the first words of Dante's Inferno. I don't know if you've read it, but you probably know it by reputation, right? It's this long poem that is essentially a guided tour of hell, complete with graphic scenes depicting the fate of the wicked. The thing that most people miss, though, especially if you keep it at arm's length, is that the Inferno is not really about hell. It'd be more true to say it's about midlife crisis and having your world turned upside down. See, Dante is this poet and politician in Florence, Italy. He lives in the later bits of the 1200s when the political landscape is a confusing mess and the church is a mixed bag of beauty and disappointment. Dante's love, the love of his life, never returns the love and dies early, and he gets himself in trouble and gets kicked out of his home city and sent into exile and has life come apart in his late 30s. Midway upon the journey of our life, I found myself within a forest dark, for the straightforward pathway had been lost. So what does Dante do? Well, he writes himself into this poem as the main character, someone whose lost his way without quite knowing how. He got off track. He got turned around in the dark, and he finds himself sliding down this slope, and he can't seem to clamber back up, and he can't find a pathway back up, so he's got nowhere left to go but down. Down. And so Dante descends, step by step, right to the very bottom of hell. And at the bottom, the ninth circle, he finds the devil. Monstrous, massive, as impressive as Trump Tower. An angel disfigured by pride and frozen, eating but never getting full, and forever weeping. And as he's distracted, he stumbles a little and loses sight of the devil for a second, right at the very bottom, and suddenly realizes that he's now climbing up, even though he hasn't changed direction. And he looks back over his shoulder to see that the devil is not towering, but is upside down. Dante realizes that what had seemed to be a journey down to the depths of humiliation and humility, the way down, has actually been the way up. His descent has been an ascent toward a face-to-face rendezvous with God, the climb through purgatory into paradise that takes up the rest of the two poems. A climb into paradise, a journey into the kingdom of the heavens. And if you ever read the follow-up, the sequel to the Inferno, what you find is that as Dante continues his strange downward climb, he makes progress after progress, still disoriented, and he hears a voice over his shoulder. And here's what the voice says. Blessed are the poor in spirit. He takes another step. Down/up. Blessed are those who mourn. He takes another step. Blessed are the meek. And those words that we heard in our gospel form the steps that take him down to the place of lowness, which is actually the paradise of God up on high. Built into this poem is the strange staircase that Jesus built for the front porch of his Sermon on the Mount. All these tweet-length blessed are's that we probably know quite well. They are Jesus' picture of the good life. A picture of the world turned upside down so that we could actually imagine it the right side up. Blessed are the poor in spirit, those who know that they are far from their best self and who have given up the facade of self-sufficiency. Blessed are the mourners, those who do not disengage from pain with ironic detachment or distraction, who do not paper over grief with religious platitudes or stoic "it is what it is" resignation, but let their hearts register their own brokenness, the brokenness of a world that should not be like it is. Blessed are the meek, who refuse to live as though life is a game of acquisition and self-assertion, in which the only happiness possible is having more. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, who see the news and crave justice for people they've never met and never will meet, and who long to become the kind of people who would not just feel things but act. Blessed are the merciful, who give freely to others what they do not deserve. Blessed are the pure in heart, who devote themselves naively to God and neighbor, and refuse to play the field by hedging their bets on serving many masters. Blessed are the peacemakers, who surrender the security of us and them for the hope of we. And blessed are the persecuted, who love Jesus and the way of Jesus, even when people dismiss them or mock them or mistreat them for it. That, says Jesus, is the good life. These are the people who live right side up. They are the blessed. Why? Because God makes a promise to people who live like this. While everyone else is busy trying to get as much as they can, trying to achieve for themselves, trying to gather things that they will not be able to keep. These people live in the center of a promise that theirs is and will be the kingdom, the comfort, the earth, soul-deep satisfaction, mercy, forgiveness, the very face of God, and a family resemblance with God's own Son, who is the embodiment of the upside-down wisdom of God that makes the wisdom of the world look like foolishness. The Beatitudes, these blessed are a self-portrait. They are a picture of Jesus and the life of utter dependency and freedom that he lives. And if you live like this, it means that you are free. Not to play anxiously by the rules of a world that's twisted itself upside down. Free to love others and not to protect yourself from them. Not to kick them out of your country. Free to live a life of undefended vulnerability. Knowing that even if someone takes your life, God can give it back because he gave it back to Jesus. It's the vision of the community that every church is called to be, including us. And in a lecture by Jean Vanier that I was reading a little while ago, Jean Vanier, son of a former Governor General of Canada, who left his academic post to live with and among people with serious disability, wrote this about what a Christian community is. Trusting people, he says, are vulnerable and can be easily crushed, just as Jesus was crushed. A community which trusts in God rather than in the righteousness of its cause can always be crushed. But from that crushing will come resurrection. There is a hidden strength in being vulnerable, open, and nonviolent, in being a people of the resurrection, knowing that we are loved and that God is guiding us in all our fragility and littleness. We are not a people who think we are better. We are not an elite. We are people who are poor, but who have been drawn together by God and put their trust in God. This is what a kingdom community is about. And just as every Sunday, as we confess, as we pass the peace, as we kneel, we come to the table hungry for something that we can't give ourselves. We are stepping into a life that casts a long shadow and a great light over all the promises of every ad and poster, that shows up so much of what passes for politicking as a lie. And we are gathering around Jesus. Amen.